about her new book and other issues. This is about an hour.
Malkin, who's on your screen, was on a program last night that I was watching, the Chris Matthews show, and it's a little bit unfair to people who weren't watching, but I got the sense when it was all over you had some more things you wanted to say. Set it up for her. I mean, it looked like, is it fair to call it a dust-up between you and Chris Matthews?
Yes, that would be a generous word for it. I had been scheduled to come on the program to talk mainly about my book. I have a contract with Fox News that generally prevents me from going on competing networks, but they gave an exception for a small period to talk about my book. And my publicist talked to the producers of the show, and it was the impression of my publicist that I'd be talking about columns that I'd recently written defending the FBI against charges that it had been engaging in jackboot tactics against protesters and Muslims, and racial profiling, and you know, the topic of the World War II internment and the lessons for today. A couple of hours before the show, they said that they wanted me to also talk about the Swiftboats veteran controversy, and of course I understand that in the news business you go with the flow, and I was perfectly willing and happy to talk about that topic and the allegations that were in the book. And the producers of the show had pre-interviewed me beforehand, asked me some general questions about the political fallout from the ads, whether or not I thought the topic would come up in the presidential debates, whether or not it was right for the group to even have brought these allegations in the ad, and whether Bush should do something more strongly to disassociate himself from it, or possibly even take some kind of action against it. So these were the questions that I was prepared to answer. And it's hardball. I didn't expect kid glove treatment, but basically Chris Matthews ambushed me. That's how I characterized it on my blog, michellemalkin.com, where I talked about what happened to me last night, and give a more detailed account. And he mischaracterized who I was representing. He said that I was a spokesperson for the Bush White House, which I was not, and which he knew I was not. He knew I was there on a special dispensation from Fox to talk about my book, which he chit-chatted with me about before the segment began, and which, leading off the segment, he referred to and said that we would be talking about. He got hung up on something that I raised that was in the book, Unfit for Command, some allegations by some veterans that the wounds that Kerry sustained in several of the incidents where he won medals were self-inflicted. And Chris Matthews interpreted that to mean that he had shot himself. And I explicitly did not say that, but he kept badgering it at it, and he tried to stuff those words into my mouth. He gave me the third and fourth degree over it. I tried to explain what I was specifically referring to, that the veterans had said there were cases where Kerry had been injured by a grenade when he fired a grenade launcher and the grenade was too close, for example. There was another incident when I believe it was the third Purple Heart that he had won, that it was shrapnel from a grenade that he had thrown into a rice cache that caused a wound, and not shrapnel from an underwater mine explosion, as was the explanation in the medal citation. In any case, he kicked me off of the show for the second segment, where it had been planned that I'd be talking about the book, and he made a big deal of trashing me for quote-unquote irresponsible comments made on the show, when all I was simply doing was being there as a journalist and as an author, and relating what I had read in the book, which he admitted he had not read.
So where are we in all this? The New York Times has come out basically in defense of John Kerry this morning on the front page with an article that interviews a lot of people that were involved in this whole story. They go back and find that people who are a part of this veteran group were pro-John Kerry in 1996 and supported him. Is this all worth this discussion? Both, and I want to add, because we started out this whole day talking about George Bush and John Kerry and their prior military record and whether any of this matters to how you're going to vote November the 2nd.
Right. Well, the thing that I find striking is the differential treatment by the mainstream media in the way that they have relentlessly pursued discrepancies and omissions in President Bush's National Guard record versus how they have treated these allegations brought by the Swiftboat veterans. And it's only come out in some of these mainstream news stories that Kerry has discrepancies that he hasn't been able to explain away, but they've only mentioned it in the context of trying to undermine these private civilians who have brought forth these allegations. And what was interesting about the hardball exchange last night was I asked Chris Matthews if he was interested at all in asking John Kerry directly any of the questions and asking him about the allegations that were raised by the veterans, and he said no, and he said it had never occurred to him to do so.
We got some emails coming out on this, and we'll get Bradford, Massachusetts, or Pennsylvania in on it. Go ahead, please. You're on the air.
Oh, well, good morning. Michelle, I guess it's not my place to apologize for Chris Matthews, but he abused you yesterday. I mean, I was just... What I find troubling is that he was asking you questions that weren't even in the context of anything that was going on. He was simply asking you about self-inflicted and all this stuff. Self-inflicted, as you said, can be anything. But what I really had to say is, I'm looking back to Abu Ghraib. We finally find out that it was a bunch of malcontents, people who are trying to get their kicks off. It doesn't go very high in the ladder. How long did we have to suffer through that with the mainstream media?
Thanks.
Yeah, all I can say, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be calling in about the hardball thing, but he accused me of being irresponsible. I was not irresponsible. I was simply trying to explain what some of these vets had raised in the book, again, which I repeat, Chris Matthews said that he did not read. And I think it's fairly clear from the transcript, from the video, from the way he treated me, who had an agenda and who didn't.
Norwalk, Connecticut, you're on the air.
Yes, hi, good morning. Oh, my God, I can't believe it. I wanted this segment so badly. I did see that exchange last night, and I am for Kerry. I did feel, and I don't want to, beat up on you, because, but Chris Matthews, I watch his show, every night on and off, and I don't think he was hard on you. I think this is what he was trying to do. He is sick and tired of that whole Swiftboat thing, and so am I. The idea of it is everyone keeps making these allegations, but no one's holding their feet to the fire. And for once, he is, I was so proud of him last night that he finally said, look, not even just to you, the person that was on before you, he did the same thing. And you should have seen me. I was going crazy in this bedroom. I was so happy. I said, just say, he kept saying, where did you get the information? But where did you get this information? And, Brian, I love you. You're so cute, and I love that jacket you always wear. It's so jet black, never has lint on it or anything. You always look so smooth. But let me just say this. You do the same thing sometimes, but maybe you didn't do it like Chris. But you are getting a little tired, too, of people just calling in and calling people nasty, ugly names. And you say, look, let's just, come on. Where did you get your information? Well, no, just where did you get it? Where did you get it? So last night he simply asked you, okay, you say that these wounds may have been self-inflicted. And he said, so, are you saying, was it a gunshot wound? He shot himself? You wouldn't answer it. So he said, no, I asked you a question to say yes or no. So all you really have to say was, no, I don't say that he shot himself, but I say maybe a wound was self-inflicted. But when he keeps asking specific questions, just answer the question.
All right, caller, thanks. Michelle Malkin.
I was trying to answer the questions, and I think it should be apparent to any fair-minded person who saw the program, or even by the transcript, that every time I tried to answer the questions and tried to get into the specifics about the nature of these wounds and the questions that the vets were raising, he interrupted me and wouldn't let me finish.